Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. It's Black and Gold Weekly presented by BetSafe Colorado. I'm your guy, Charles Johnson, with you for the next, however long it takes. We got a lot to talk about. Obviously, the CU Buffs took one on the chin for the first time this year, 42-6 loss to the Oregon Ducks in a very hostile environment at, I think it's Autzen Arena or Autzen Stadium in Eugene, Oregon. That's a good Oregon football team, and they took it to the Buffs. And listen, I'll be honest with you, not all that surprised at the outcome of this football game. You talk about a program and a team that has been on such a meteoric rise, and the emotion that it takes to sustain that is a lot. You know, you think about the beginning of the season and the big victory to open it up against TCU on the road, and then you come home and you play your home opener with a big emotional game against Nebraska, and you take care of business there, and then you follow that up with your in-state rival. Well, is CSU a rival? You know, people call it a rival. I don't know whether or not. I'll ask Jeremy Bloom. Jeremy Bloom is going to join us. That's right. The great Jeremy Bloom will be joining us here momentarily to talk all things CU Buffs. I want to get his opinion on whether or not CSU game is a rivalry game. We'll talk more about that as well. But you come back and you win an emotional overtime, double overtime win over CSU, and then you're on the road to start Pac-12 conference play against arguably the best team in the conference. Well, now some may say, wait a minute, slow down, big fella. You may be seeing the best team in the conference this upcoming weekend when USC pays a visit to Boulder. But you can make the case that Oregon, a top 10 team, is one of the best, perhaps the best in the conference, certainly one of the best in the country. You get there and you lay a bit of an egg, right? I think it was to some degree predictable, because it was, to sustain that level of emotional sort of energy is just a lot to ask. Now, I'm not making excuses. No excuses. This is a no excuse zone, but I think it's a reality. I've been in games or on teams where you hit those emotional highs, and it's bound to get you at some point, especially when you're a team like CU that's not wrought with depth of talent. We have talent in key places, but let's be clear about what we're talking about. This is not a team or program, at least yet, that has depth of talent that can overcome an emotional lull from time to time. And I think we saw that this past weekend. It'll be interesting to see, and I'm looking forward to seeing the Buffs get up off the mat and show much better at home against a top-ranked, top 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that, top 10 team in the country in USC, with arguably the best college football player in the country coming in, and that quarterback at SC who's flat out outstanding. Now, having said that, it's also tough. I think it's an additional challenge for CU when your best player on both sides of the ball, and arguably the best a non-quarterback in college football, Travis Hunter, is out. You take that talent off the field and you combine that with sort of the emotional challenge of getting up every week that caught up with us this past weekend. I think it's a lot to overcome. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens this weekend. I'm counting on my Buffs. I think we'll see something special once again, dialed up by Coach Prime and his coaching staff when USC comes to town this weekend. And so I'm looking forward to that. Again, so many things to talk about, but right now I got to get to it. We're talking about a CU legend, folks. You know, when you say CU, the University of Colorado, and its athletics, and you look out that Mount Rushmore, we've had on this show a number of members who would probably be on that Mount Rushmore. We've had Cordell Stewart. We've had the great Joel Klatt. We've had Daniel Graham. And I'm going to add another nominee to that list right now as we head out and hook up with my man, Jeremy Bloom. I'm going to tell you what makes Jeremy so special. Check him out. Check out that smile. This brother got $1 million smile, man. More than the smile is the fact that, Jeremy, you got to be the only one in CU. I mean, we're talking about a National Ski Hall of Famer. We talking about my man, this guy right here on the screen, y'all. It was against Florida State when I first really took note of my man, Jeremy Bloom. when you had those brothers chasing you, man, looked like the old hood and the police chasing. You had those brothers, and you were running away from them. I said, "Wait a minute, man, who's number 15? Like, what is going?" My man, Jeremy, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing great. It's great to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Jeremy, listen, man, so proud of you for so many reasons, and we talk about your exploits in athletics, and that's obviously notable nationally. But your nonprofit efforts and the things that you do, man, is just off the charts, man. Talk a little bit about that before we get into it, JB.
I had two amazing grandparents, CJ, and I love them dearly. My grandfather flew 17 missions in World War II over Berlin and Germany, and my grandmother was just this, sort of average human being, but she's so wonderful, and she never complained, and she was one of my biggest heroes in life. And so I started the Wish of a Lifetime Foundation, and we grant lifelong wishes to 80, 90, and 100-year-old people, and we have the time of our lives, and we get to meet really incredible people who have always dreamed about doing one thing in their life. And we're lucky, we're grateful to be the organization saying, hey, we're going to make that dream come true. So we've been granting wishes now for over a decade and having a lot of fun.
To 80, 90, 100-year-old citizens, the people who paved the way for all of us, trailblazers.
That's right.
That's amazing. Now, how could people who might be listening to this show or watching this show contact or make a contribution or volunteer or help contribute?
Yeah, we love volunteers. We also love folks that want to take part in our mission and watch stories. There's so many great stories that we've told from just incredible human beings. So it's wishofaLifetime.org. We got videos. We got ways to get involved as a volunteer and as a supporter. And wishofaLifetime.org.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations on that. That's big time. Jeremy, let's talk a little football. Our Buffs took one on the chin this past weekend at Oregon. I believe to some degree predictable. Right now, let me be, completely transparent. I didn't say it was predictable this time last week when we were talking about the show because I'm an eternal optimist. But in hindsight, you look at it and you say, man, this team has been on such a meteoric, emotional ride. And you think about 18, 19, 20-year-olds, it's difficult to sustain. And you take a Travis Hunter off the field. I'm thinking, you know what, in hindsight, got it. I can understand how that could happen at Oregon. What was your thought about the outcome of the game?
Well, I love your optimism. I'm more of a realist. So, look, they don't have the team to compete against the Oregons. If they had, 3 Travis Hunters, I don't think they win the football game. It's funny because, Deion Sanders said he's bringing his Louis to Boulder. Well, the skill positions are Louis, but the offensive and defensive lines more like Samsonite, some areas to upgrade.
Hey, wait a minute. Samsonite is tough and strong. At least that's what the commercials taught me when I was a kid.
It ain't Louis. So look, they have to shore up the offensive and defensive line. Shedeur Sanders is getting hit way too many times. He's getting sacked. He's putting in, in risk, quite frankly. But look, Sean Lewis is a great playmaker. I think he's doing a good job. Shedeur's trying to get the ball out of his hands really, really quickly. But folks got to remember, this is year one. Yeah. This is year one. And this was a forgotten team last year and the year before. It was the laughingstock of the country. Nobody paid attention to Colorado football. We didn't have the players. We didn't have the talent. We didn't have the coaches. And this is year one. And expectations are obviously sky high because the team went out and did something in the beginning of the season that very few people predicted they were going to go into Fort Worth and beat TCU. A team that was in the national championship game a year ago. And Nebraska, reloaded with talent. They took care of business. They didn't even play that well, CJ. And
that's right.
And they, the game wasn't even close. And then, look, CSU came to town and you had 86 transfer students that have come to CU within the past 12 months who didn't understand what the Rocky Mountain Showdown was all about. They didn't understand that this is Colorado State's Super Bowl. They didn't understand this is the one moment in those kids' life where they're going to be on national TV. And CSU, hats off to them, CJ. They played a great game. They outplayed CU almost that entire game. But, Shedeur went into Tom Brady mode with a minute 26 seconds left, 98 yards, scored a touchdown, a 2-point conversion. The rest is history.
Jeremy, it's kind of hard to explain like the CSU game. I hate it. I'll be honest with you. From the time I played, I remember the first time we played CSU when I was at CU was up, and I think it was 88, and we were up at Hughes Stadium or whatever. And it's
you
just
didn't
one
like
of those.
Hughes Stadium, that's for sure.
No. I'm still trying to figure out what the hell it is or was. But here's the thing. It's one of those survive and advance games, right? You just get through it. Doesn't matter how it looks or the outcome. And from that perspective, is this game or is it a rivalry game? I find it hard to see it as such, but it's a game that you better be ready for because you made the point. This is their Super Bowl.
CJ, I love the game. I loved playing in it. I love the rivalry. I love the bragging.
Yeah, but you like flying down like large hills at 300 miles an hour, and you like some crazy stuff, JB.
It's true. You're right about that. I'm a bit of a daredevil, but I love to compete. I love competition, and I love teams that are going to give you their best shot. And in the state of Colorado, when I was playing and sort of when you were playing, I mean, we had 80,000 people at Denver Broncos Stadium. This was a meaningful game. And by the way, CSU had a very good team. This is Bradley Van Pelt days. And still, fast forward to today, because that's ancient history. I love the game today. Now, I understand, coaches probably don't love it because it's one of those emotional games on the calendar. It makes no difference really to the conference, but it makes a lot of difference to the players who have to go through that emotional game and then get ready for another emotional game the next week. And I get that, but from an alum's perspective and a fan's perspective, I hope they continue the game. I really enjoy it. I love the Rocky Mountain Showdown.
I'm gonna tell you what I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to visiting CSU next year and going up on that campus and watching the game in that stadium. I am happy for the CSU faithful and fan base up there. It's no longer Hughes Field. I don't know what the name of the stadium is, but it's on campus.
What is it? Stadium. I don't know the name of it, but it's on campus. It's a new stadium.
It's a nice stadium.
It's a great stadium.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the visiting team going up there and just taking in that atmosphere. It's what college football, I think, is all about. So, all right, let's get USC out the way because there's something else I got to talk to you about that you made some news here recently, and we got to get into it. But USC's coming to town, top 10 team, probably a top 5 team. It just so happens we play the top 2 teams in the conference back to back.
Yeah.
Your outlook on this game? Caleb Williams is as good as advertised. The guy's the real deal. What do you see for our Colorado Buffaloes, JB?
This USC team is more complete than Oregon. That's scary, and so we have big missing pieces on our offensive line, defensive line. Whether Travis Hunter plays or not, probably won't play. I know he wants to play, based off the text message he sent to Coach Prime. I don't see us winning this game. I don't, and I think it could be a similar outcome as it was against Oregon. And by the way, I won't find any qualms about that. This is year one. Coach Prime has done an unbelievable job bringing some great talent here, winning some close, tough games. He's not ready to compete with USC. He will be. I loved what he said against at the press conference at Oregon. He said, "You better get me now." Because this is the worst that we're going to be. And I believe that. He's a winner. Kids want to play for him. They got to build the trenches, obviously. Everybody knows that. They got to get the 4- and 5-star big guys here. Got to figure out a way to do that. But no, I don't see him winning this game, unfortunately.
It's interesting. I look at this game, and in reality, you're right. We're outgunned. We know that. And I am the eternal optimist, right? I'm always trying to figure out what scenario might work out so that it ends up in our favor. One takeaway I got from really all 4 games so far this year, because of what you just said in large part, we're not that talented in enough places to be behind the sticks. What I mean, and this is more of a note to Shedeur, 2nd and 10 is manageable. 2nd and 17 is not for this team. And so that means just throwing it away to stay at least even with the chains, or if we're going to be behind it, not by 17, we can live in that space. Probably still not good enough, to your point, against someone as established as USC. But as we move forward, we got to be a team that's even with the sticks, not behind it, because you're right. Our offensive line I think on both sides, up front, we're a little bit compromised. But that's a big takeaway for me as I watch these games as a quarterback.
I think the other takeaway is it's a one-dimensional offense. TCU didn't know that. Nebraska didn't really know that. CSU might have known it, but Oregon definitely knew it. I mean, they only had to rush 4, drop 7 into coverage because they knew the team can't run the football. If you can't run the football, we literally can't run the football. Look at the numbers. It's probably the worst in FBS. You're a one-dimensional offense. So you can have the best quarterback in the country. You can have great receivers, which we do. Check. But if you can only pass the ball, you make it pretty easy on defensive coordinators to figure out how to game plan against that.
And you were one of the best receivers to ever do it, particularly here in a CU uniform. And as you've noted, look, and as a quarterback, the best friend of a quarterback or a receiver is to, one, be on schedule. 2nd and 6, 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4 is a great down. But two, being able to run the football, having the defense staff to compromise. You're right. If you can drop 7 every play, that's tough real estate for a team that's forced to pass the ball.
Yeah.
So listen, let's get to it, man. It's funny, as I was prepping for it, by the way, on such a short note, man, I just want to shout out to you for joining me today. There's one number that's sticking out in my mind right now, and I've been locked in on it from the time I saw it. 166 million. Now, I want you to share with our audience the significance of 166 million, why I'm bringing it up, and that's something that came from you. Talk a little bit about that, JB.
I think you got to put a new deal in front of Coach Prime, and you got to do it quickly. History tends to repeat itself if you're not paying attention. And we don't have to go far to look at history potentially repeating itself here at Colorado with Coach Mel Tucker. Now, forget about what's happening to Mel Tucker now. In 2019, he had this team headed in the right direction. It's indisputable. Left with inside the first year of his contract because the buyout was too small. Other teams saw him across the country, Michigan State, and said, this buyout's too small. We got enough boosters. We'll pay for this. We'll do a 10-year deal. Coach Prime's buyout's too small. For what he has done, not only for this football team, that's obvious, for this community, for the state of Colorado, for college football in general. He is bringing eyeballs to college football that have never watched a college football game. He's a transcendental figure. I mean, what other coach in the country can sell $10 million worth of sunglasses? Kirby Smart can't. Nick Saban can't. So he's got a different dynamic. Now, when I suggested, it's probably a 10-year, $166 million deal, that's not all guaranteed. That's performance-based. That's based off merchandise sales. That's based off ticket sales. That's based off TV revenue. He should be sort of thought of as an owner of the program, right? He's tied into the success of the program. Yeah, you probably have to pay him, I don't know, $9 million a year, somewhere around there to get him on the level for top coaches. I think he deserves that because I think he's a darn good football coach outside of all the glitz, the glamour, the swag, and everything else that he brings. But look, I mean, the Chamber of Commerce here in Boulder said that $18 million of additional revenue was created just from the Nebraska game alone. That's Coach Prime. Without him here, that doesn't happen. So Now it's not just football. It's a small business thing. It's a community thing. It's a state thing. There's all kinds of avenues and elements where folks should be, raising money. And the pundits who say, why should, that's crazy. He should not make as much money or more than, Coach Saban. They're not looking at the full picture. They're not looking at the full economic impact of Coach Prime because he's one of one. You cannot find another coach like that. You can't. And so when you understand the impact, now, by the way, if he loses all the gains, the merchandise will be down, the ticket sales will be down, the TV revenue down, he won't make that much money. He won't make as much. But if you can put a compensation package in front of him that is highly incentivized on continuing to do the things that he's doing here 3 weeks, 4 weeks into the season, and if he does, he should be compensated appropriately for it.
You know what? Jeremy, what you say makes all the sense in the world. In fact, I'm on record as saying what Coach Sanders is to see. First of all, I think he's the most valuable coach to his program than any in the country.
Without question.
I think that's indisputable. If Nick Saban decided to retire tomorrow, that fan base and how important football is to Alabama, they'll figure it out.
Look what happened when Urban Meyer retired at Ohio State. I mean, nothing.
That's exactly right.
We're not Ohio State. You're absolutely right.
That's exactly right. So, and I look at this, I look at the presence of Coach Prime more of it's a business proposition. And I think the folks you mentioned, the Boulder Chamber of Commerce, I would even stretch it as far as the Denver Chamber of Commerce. This is more of a business engagement than it is a contribution type, how much money can you raise type of engagement. And I'll give you an example. Like, the university goes around and we have all kinds of corporate partners that we ask for contributions for, right? We want, good corporate friends to be in partnership with us because what the university feeds our business environments is a major contribution, all kinds of talent, not football talent, but academic talent. That's fine. Do that work. What Coach Prime is bringing to the economy, those contributions should come out of marketing budgets, not out of percentages of marketing budgets, not out of contributions and that are gifts to the university, because he means so much to it. I can't get a hotel room in Boulder or the surrounding areas.
Yeah.
And if I find one, JB, it's going to be $500 at least a night.
Yeah,
I can't get a dinner reservation at a restaurant Thursday through Sunday. And so the economy is benefiting. And if he's going to be the rising tide that lifts all boats, then we have to secure that. And you're right. Let's share the responsibility and making sure he's compensated so that we secure the best marketing tool we have for every business in the Boulder metro area.
CJ, I said on Twitter that I would contribute today $100,000 to a long-term deal. And that's pennies in the buckets of that big of a contract. But, I want to send a message that there's a lot of alums like myself who will give less and a lot that will give more. But it's really meaningful to me. It really is. I care deeply about this team. I care deeply about this program. I care deeply about the university. I care deeply about this community. And CJ, I can see what will happen if he leaves. And it is catastrophic. If he were to leave this year, next year, with the transfer portal the way that it is, it will be worse than what happened when Mel Tucker left. I don't even know if we'll have a program. And if we do have a program, I certainly don't think that we will be relevant. And it might take us a decade or two, just like it has taken us 2 decades to get to where we are today to be relevant again. And I don't think that's acceptable. I don't think that's an acceptable outcome. So I think you got to do everything you possibly can to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Jeremy, I love the sense of urgency in which you speak about this topic. I think that's what's missing to me. The one thing that frustrates me is, it's almost and I'm not taking a shot at the fan base or anything like that, but I get it, right? This is so unique and so fun that we tend to just kind of ride the wave. I don't sense, and I hope I'm wrong about this, I don't sense that sense of urgency that if we don't sustain this and talk like real business people around what the impact he's bringing here is, then you're right. We run the risk of losing it. It is almost a whatever it takes proposition. Right. We're just about at that point, not because we'll win national championships. I think that's in the makings if this is sustainable, if we keep them here. But it's really about think about this. And this is crazy. The television viewership of games that we played in this year. Right. I mean, Colorado State, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, 10 o'clock on the East Coast, JB. Right.
1 million people.
Hey, man, 9 million plus people.
11 at its peak. 11 million people at its peak. I mean,
who does that?
Colorado's never seen those numbers, ever. Not even.
And very few programs in the history has ever seen those numbers, right?
Fifth most watched game in ESPN history.
Listen, folks, if this isn't sobering enough, again, that's why sometimes when I talk about the games, I'm like, 34, whatever, we won or lost. I'm thinking we're having the wrong conversation, right? This is so trivial in the grand scheme of things, the outcome of the game, especially right now, this year, that I'm almost like cheapening what the real conversation should be when I have it.
I think what's happening, CJ, is people are sort of getting lulled into sleep from some of the things that Coach Prime is saying. And he's saying all the right things on TV. He's like, I love it here. I want to get comfortable here. Don't let me get comfortable here. I want to be here for a long period of time. And he's got a great relationship with Rick George. I don't take any of that away.
Absolutely.
But I don't buy a single word of it at all. And not because I think he's being disingenuous.
Not at all. It's a little bit of grain of truth.
I don't buy a single bit of it because I know people change the way that they think when new information is presented to them. It's just humanistic in you and me and everybody. I believe that right now in this moment, he feels that way. But what happens when Florida State, Ohio State, Clemson, there's probably 35 or 40 teams that have the boosters to go buy him out at $10 million, not even flinch, and say, I want what's happening at Colorado to happen here, and I'm willing to pay for it. There's 30, 40 schools who are having that conversation right now. So I don't think that there's enough sense of urgency in the leadership at CU. I'm trying to be vocal on the topic because I deeply care. I don't want to be an athletic director. I'm not trying out for that. I don't need to be on TV. I don't need that. I run a great business. I love my job. I'm a CEO of a company that I adore. I'm vocal and out there saying this right now, CJ, because I deeply care. And I see the writings on the wall of what will happen if he leaves, and I can't live with that. I don't think anyone in CU Nation can live with that. And so I'm passionate about it, and I hope we can get something done.
Well, two things, man. One, you look great on TV. So if ever you decided that's what you wanted to do, I'm sure you'd make a run at it.
Thank
and
you.
Two, you are absolutely right, man. And I appreciate your voice. You've said a few things since Prime has been hired as the head coach that I think are shots, and across the bow a little bit. They're warning shots to say, hey, listen, don't take for granted what you have. I was in a meeting with a group of CU faithfuls, right? They've been long time sort of CU people. And the conversation began to slip to, well, this is an equal partnership. We gave him as much as he could take. I said, whoa, slow down. Slow down. Now he's one of one. Let's be clear-eyed and sober-minded about what we're talking about. We need to do whatever it takes to make this sustainable over the course of, the foreseeable future. The one thing I told Coach Prime when I met him and we had a good conversation was my objective. I don't care what this year looks like. I mean, it's in the balance, right? You bring in a lot of kids. I don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
My objective is to make sure you retire as the head coach of the University of Colorado.
It's a good
Full
objective.
stop. Yeah, that's it. Nothing. I don't give it.
On that objective, CJ. I like that.
Yeah. That's the point right there. So let's figure out what it's going to take.
Yep.
And let's meet that objective.
And by the way, we sort of need to figure out if that's what Deion wants. Does he really want to be here long term? And if he does, great. Give him a big contract, but CJ, make sure that buyout is at least $100 million, something that's untenable for any university to come in and pay that. By the way, Kirby Smart's buyout of Georgia, $90 million.
Right.
Okay. So it's not unprecedented, unheard of. If Kirby Smart wins back-to-back national champion, you don't have a team that can come in and pay $90 million plus his salary expectations. So
right.
I'm with you.
You're absolutely right.
We're thinking about this the same way. And, you kicked off the show of talking about CU Mount Rushmore, man. You're right front and center on that.
No. I'm just the curator. I'm the guy who keeps it all clean and keeps it pretty for everybody, right?
That bus is right there, front and center on them.
JB, listen, man, I love what you do. I love your voice and how you represent this great university, yourself, your family. I love the passion you have for your grandparents, man, and what you're doing with the nonprofit. Let's get that information out again to our viewers.
Sure. It's wishofelifetime.org.
Wishofelifetime.org. Just given, I don't want to say life, but opportunity and letting our seniors, those who've passed or created that route for us to do great things, and just reminding them how much we love and appreciate them. My man, Jeremy Bloom. Thanks, my man.
See you, CJ.
We'll do it again soon.
Go Buffs.
All right. Black and Gold Weekly presented by BetSafe Colorado. That guy right there is, again, just a jewel for us. And, Google Jeremy Bloom, or just Google Jeremy Bloom and take note. I think sometimes over time passes, we forget what he did, not just as a great CU buff, but as one of the great skiers in the history of this country, and just how well he represents himself and making his family proud, his extended family, including myself as a CU buff. The guy is top notch, all class, all quality. And I appreciate him joining the show. Before we get out of here, I do want to take a look ahead at USC. And I give credit for Jeremy for having I don't want to say courage, because I don't think it requires courage, but let's call it wisdom to call it like he sees it, right? This is a tough out to try and get this victory against USC, albeit at home, this Saturday, 10 o'clock Mountain Time. Fox, I think it's, again, the big Saturday, big noon Saturday Fox game. But one thing we have to do, as I mentioned to JB, is we have to stay ahead of the chains. Too often, because we're not great at protecting the quarterback yet, is we find ourselves in 2nd and 17, 2nd and 15. And as a quarterback, the thing that was almost most precious to me is just staying on schedule. Now, when 2 or 3 years from now, when we're deep and we have, the best receivers and the best linemen we can protect and we can run the football, 2nd and 17 isn't as daunting. But right now on a team that is that's compromised in certain positions, we have to stay ahead of it. 2nd and 8 in normal situations, it looks horrible. You want to be at least 2nd and 6 or better. But I'll take 2nd and 8, given how difficult it is for us to protect the quarterback. So that's my one takeaway. I'm watching that. Can we stay out of 2nd and longs? And can we avoid the big play, not allow USC to score on, 2 or 3 play drives where, Caleb Williams strikes big and we have to contain him. And I know there's a lot of have-tos there for a team that's without its best player in Travis Hunter. But those are the things that I think the Buffs have worked on this week in preparation for this game against USC. And I'm expecting it to be a good game, a game in the balance late, a game that the Buffs will have an opportunity to win in the last 5 minutes of it. So that's JB rightly called me an optimist. That's my optimistic sort of view of this game this weekend. He says he's more of a realist, and he's been shown to be just that. And we'll see next week who was right. But with that, I want to thank you all for tuning in to another edition of Black and Gold Weekly, again, presented each week by BetSafe Colorado. Listen, be careful out there. Let's enjoy this game. Let's bring another victory home. Go Buffs, and I'll see you again next week.